Hello and welcome, my name is Leo. I have another watch here today, and this time it's a Seiko which I believe was produced in February 1971. It gets a little confusing when a movement is produced over 10 years. The first number of the serial number, which is number 1, could mean it's from 1971 or 1981. I've done some research, you never know which information is correct, but everything leads me to the year 1971. When you look at the case, it looks more like a 70s watch rather than a watch from the 80s. It's not looking pretty. The case is scratched, there are some dings, the crystal is scratched. It's not looking attractive at all. Look at the dirt around the locks, absolutely filthy. Let's have a look whether everything works as expected. Time setting is fine, so let's have a look at the day and date change. That's fine too. Now let's have a look at the quick set date. That's also fine. These movements do not have quick set day complication. When you wear the watch every day, you'll never need to set the day, but you will need to set the date every other month. It's nice to have the quick set day complication, but it's not as important as the quick set date. I demagnetized it, let's check it before I put it on the Timegrapher. Looks good to me. I fully wound it and it's been running for 20 minutes. I want to see it properly in all 6 positions, but don't worry, I'll speed up the video so we get to see it all, but we're not here forever. Dial up, the amplitude is low, but the beater is good. Crown up, it's running fast. The amplitude has dropped as you'd expect. Beater is good. Dial down, the amplitude is considerably lower than dial up, they should be close to equal. Crown down, the beater is getting a little high. Crown left, we're running fast, very fast. Crown right, we're running even faster. It definitely needs a service. This is what I use to open cases with instead of the ball. I think the wooden section in the middle lets me to put more pressure on the case back. This is the reference number. That's not how you're supposed to hold it, but I have the lens in the way, so I have no other option. Now I can use the good old pegwood. The rotor is working just fine. Let's have a look at the pawl lever. Yep, it's doing its job. The gasket can be difficult to get to, so I'm going to push on the ring with my tweezers just here. There we go, that's lifted the gasket and I can take it out. With the crown in time setting position, pushing just here will release the stem. And finally, I can take the movement out of the case. Give it a tap. And nothing happens. Oh, just the ring? Is that all I get? This is definitely not a front loader, but the movement is not coming out no matter what I try, so I'm going to attempt to remove the crystal. Look at that dirt that's been hiding behind the bezel. I'm going to get rid of it before I remove the crystal. I don't want it all over the dial. I work fast. I've not speeded it up at all. This is how I work. It's like a sweatshop here. Beautiful, doesn't it look lovely? No, 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 no. This is not the tool for removing a crystal with a tension ring, but it will grip it nicely, and I'm keeping my fingers crossed, not while I do it, that I will be able to remove the crystal and hopefully release the movement out of the case. Let me tighten it. I'll keep the case down on the bench and I'll try to pry it off. Tighten it a little bit more. Doesn't want to go. Okay, I was trying to be nice for a while, but it looks like I will have to use some more force. Come on. No. Corner by corner. I'm a bit worried that the hands might get damaged when the crystal comes off if it does. Here we go. The hands are fine. No, they're not. The second hand is bent. Well, something to sort out later. I'll remove the hands now. I'll need to open the case back and remove the crown and stem so they will be better off out of the way. Can you see the bent second hand? Let me take the case back off. Move the rotor out of the way and remove the crown and stem. Now I can flip it over. And finally we got there. The dial feed, I turn the screws roughly 180 degrees. And the dial is off. There is a spacer between the dial and the main plate. There's a groove in the hour wheel for the snap. It's above the day disc so the snap doesn't touch the day disc, hence you get a gap there to get the hand levers into. I'm using a protector not to scratch the disc, and as a bonus it's not going to fly off. Now lift the day disc. And next is the day jumper. This is the day finger. I'll take these screws out so I can remove the date dial guard. That's the date jumper. And the date dial can come off now. That's the hour wheel, minute wheel, intermediate date wheel. I'm not yanking it, I had to speed it up, I'm slowly moving it back and forth. Date finger. I would normally remove them both at the same time, but I'm just doing it for the camera so you can see all the parts. Hurry up, Leo. About time. and that's the date driving wheel. Before I remove the cannon pinion, I want to have the balance out of the way, so I will start with the rotor. Now the second reduction wheel, note the screw is reverse threaded. Here we go. Let me move the pull lever out of the way. Now I can let the power down. And while I'm here, I might as well remove the ratchet wheel. It's filthy. It's the Seiko S4 grease that got there from the pull lever. Now I can remove the balance. Let me lift the balance cock slightly. That's better by the stud. Let me get it away from the stud. I'll try to lift the balance wheel a little bit. It's difficult when you're doing it for the camera and can't move the movement holder. Let's see where it's going to go. That's it. While I'm here, I'll remove the pallet fork and its bridge. The pallet fork is stuck in the jewel. Lifts effortlessly. The pivots are looking good. Now back on the motion side, this is what we have left here. And I can now remove the cannon pinion. Now I can release the tension from the yoke. Let me remove this guard. Now I can remove the yoke. I'm having a bit of a battle here. For your viewing pleasure, I stick down the movement holder down to my bench with Rodico, and I have to work around it rather than moving the holder and the movement to a position where I can easily get to it. Now the setting lever. The crown and stem. And the sliding clutch. I can't see a thing, I'm just hoping that at some point the tweezers will go into the squared hole. That's better, I can grab it now. Now it's time to remove the barrel and train bridge. Let me lift it here. Here you get a nice view of the underside of the bridge. That's the first reduction wheel holder. Let me move it out of the way slightly. Now I'm going to separate it. Lovely. Even better. That's the S4 grease. Back to the main plate, that's the click. Fourth wheel. That's the third wheel. The escape wheel. Now the going barrel. Now the center wheel bridge. And the center wheel. We've got this plate with the end stones here. I'll remove it for cleaning. Now the barrel. The barrel is not supposed to be taken apart, but where do you get hold of Seiko barrel complete? I would normally use a sharp blade, but doing it on the camera I would most likely cut myself, so I'll use the screwdriver. Use a blade, the screwdriver will leave marks on the barrel. Here we go. Yes, it needs a good clean. Sorry guys, I had to remove the mainspring off the camera not to damage it. All parts have been cleaned and inspected, and I'll start with oiling these jewels. Firstly, I'm going to install this plate on the main plate. After the ultrasonic, I put it in a jar with Renata essence. I go over the end stones with pegwood. They can be quite gunky, and it's a very thin film, impossible to see. Then I put it in a jar with IPA to clean any residue from the essence. I put the bridge on just so it is more stable when I take the Diashock out and put it back in. And note I put the barrel arbor in. Now there is nothing obstructing it, and I can test the side shake and end shake. This way you can test any wheel that might be later on obstructed by other wheels, making it impossible to test the side shakes and end shakes. See this? I found the S4 grease quite difficult to clean. It wasn't going off even though I put it in the ultrasonic several times. And it's a good Elma ultrasonic unit. I ended up going over it with pegwood and Renata essence, but that was taking off the plating. The S4 is literally baked into the plating. You can see a little bit here as well. I'd say the grease stained the plating. It's as clean as it could be. The side and end shakes are fine. For the Diashock, I use pin vices with brass rods. The tips are fairly sharp, but because they are brass, they won't scratch anything. They shed a little when you press them against the spring, but that's easily cleaned up with Rodico. I used steel tweezers before, but that scratched the shat on, so now I'm using brass rods instead. The tiny brass flakes you will get will be on the top of the end stone, and you can clean it up. It's not perfect, but it's better than scratching the movement. And the fun starts now. Taking them out is of course much easier than putting them back in. They are tiny. I'll use Rodico to pick them up. As I mentioned before, Renata Essence or Horosolve as the first fluid. Some scrubbing with pegwood on the end stove to remove any old oil that might still be there but impossible to see. Then I transfer it to the jar on the right, which has IPA in it to remove any residue from the essence. Just make sure the balance or the palette fork don't go in the IPA, as that would dissolve the shellac. Anything to do with shellac, I use Persian dip instead. Let me put the end stone back in. You may notice that there are some brass chippings on the top of the end stone. That's because I tried to put it in before and it didn't go very well. So this is my second try, but I'll tidy it up once it's all in. Now I'll tidy up after myself. I'll oil it with 9010. This is for the escape wheel, by the way. Same procedure for the other one. This is for the third wheel. I wanted to see whether the spring is curved in any way for the end stone, but it looks very straight to me. I'll put it back in now. I'll zoom out a little this time. These are not easy. If the end stone wasn't moving around, it would be much easier. The balance end stones, they are much easier to do. Here we go. Little tidy up. 9010. And here you can see the oil. Same for the other two on the main plate. I've oiled them with the automatic oiler from the underside. The Diashocks have been lubricated and I can get on with assembling the keyless work, which is in this area you're looking at now. These are the parts I will be using now. I'll start with the stem and I'm using Moebius 9501 grease. All four sides needs greasing, but I'll do the other three off the camera. Here it's better to get the grease on the sides. The setting lever touches the sides, not the section between. I also like to put a bit of grease here. You can see the brass where the friction happens. Now let me put the clutch and stem in. I of course can't see a thing and I'm turning it round until it's in. The things you do for the camera, it's good fun. I hope you like it. Know that all four sections for the clutch have been greased now. Knife 501 here, and same as the setting lever. It needs to be on the sides because the yoke makes contact with the sides rather than the section between the sides. This is where you grease the yoke, but not how you grease the yoke. You do it when it's seated, but for your viewing pleasure, I have it like this so you can see it. Let me also grease this section for the yoke. And I'll put some D5 here. I use D5 instead of HP oils when it's metal on metal. If you look at Moebius website, they state that HP oils are for ruby bearings. For brass bearings, they recommend D4 or D5. Just a touch here for your viewing pleasure, and I made a mess of it. Right, let's tidy up then. And now the yoke can go in. The setting lever, let me move it slightly, secure it all in place with the guard. I'm not tightening it fully as yet. Get the yoke under here. And now I can tighten it. Let me test it. This position doesn't actually do anything. See where the yoke makes contact with the clutch? Quick set date. And the time setting. And just for the fun of it, let's have a look at it from the underside. It's amazing how a clutch can look pretty, especially when it's got a blue makeup on. Now I'm going to assemble the barrel. That's the part I'll be using now. I prefer doing it now rather than assemble the train partially, then assemble the barrel, and then carry on with the train. Get it all ready, and then you can just rock and roll. I prefer to use the original Seiko mainsprings, even if they are not absolutely 100% perfect. That's because you can't get hold of the Seiko mainsprings. At least I can't. And I'll show you why I use the original ones. Here we have the Seiko mainspring on the left and the GR mainspring on the right. Now look at where the bridle is attached on the Seiko mainspring. It's at the very end of it, and the GR mainspring, it's attached here, and that's not all. The Seiko bridle is considerably thicker than the GR bridle. Let me show you. See, the Seiko bridle on the left is much thicker than the mainspring itself, while the GR bridle has the same thickness as the mainspring. Many barrels for automatic watches have notches in the barrel wall for the bridle to catch onto, but the Seiko don't. The thicker bridle has obviously more strength in it, and that's why I use the Seiko mainsprings whenever I can. I'm in the process of cleaning the mainspring. I do it by hand. I'm not a fan of putting them in a basket and possibly twisting them a bit. The ultrasonic would be nice, it would do a better job, but for the sake of the mainspring, I do it by hand. Same as you've seen with jewels, a horological cleaning fluid such as Renata or Horosolve, and when it's clean, I wipe it with IPA. I'm not going to record winding it in as I had a few mishaps doing it on the camera, but I will take you step by step, showing you everything so you can do it too. I'll be using the blue arbor number 6 and the drum number 7. It's my least favorite combination. But the drum number 6 is too small and the arbor number 7 is a bit large in diameter for the coil on the mainspring. The drum number 7 is attached too large, it basically sits on the barrel. You have to be very careful when you place it on the barrel when pushing the mainspring in. See, the number 7 arbor fits perfectly, just as you'd expect. The number 6 I will be using, the diameter of the arbor is smaller than the hole, so it wobbles, and the disc also gets in the drum rather than sitting on top. I put the mainspring on, it's nicely seated on the hook. Winding it in was easy. Removing the arbor from the mainspring, that's another story. It took me some time to get it off the hook and get it past the flat section on the arbor. It's not easy because the arbor wobbles inside of the drum. Several minutes later, I finally managed to get it off and the mainspring is in the drum. But before I put it in the barrel, I need to grease the barrel wall with a braking grease. I'll place it in 6 places on the barrel wall. Draw 3 imaginary lines on the barrel, and that's where the grease needs to go. I'll be using the Kluber P125. This grease is an absolute bargain. £83.94 for 5 grams at the time of making this video. That makes it £16,788 per 1 kilogram. That's very reasonable, isn't it? Now, this stuff is sticky. Very sticky. You really have to be very careful how you scoop it with the oiler, otherwise you will end up with strings just like I did now for demonstration. You don't want that because you'd get the grease not just on the barrel wall but also barrel floor, and you don't want it there. What you want is to have it perfectly on the oiler, just like I have it here. See? That's perfect. It took me some time to put it on the wall, but if you look carefully, you'll see it's only on the wall, nowhere else. This is tricky. I can't see the gap you can see there. Here we go. Look at that beauty, and the coil is perfectly centered. Before I put the barrel arbor in, I'm going to put some D5 here. Again, it's metal on metal, HP oils are for ruby bearings, and that's from Moebius website. I don't think you need to put the oil here. I'd say oil in the top section is sufficient, that's where it makes contact. The barrel arbor holder is great in most cases, but the coil is tight. I can't see what I'm doing. I might have to give up on it and use my tweezers. I ended up doing it with my tweezers instead. You could see where I was catching the arbor on the coil, but I couldn't see it from my side. A bit of D5 on the arbor for the lid here. Rather than putting 3 dots of the grease on the lid, I'll put it on the mainspring itself. This is Moebius A200 by the way. I'll put it in 3 places, equally spaced out. Now I can put the lid on. Give it a push. And there we have it. This is what we need to assemble the train. The barrel is assembled, Diashocks have been lubricated. Isn't that fantastic? You didn't think I'd dive straight into putting the wheels in, did you? The first reduction wheel needs lubricating. I'm using the Seiko S4 grease here. You'll have to bear with me, you know I like to take my time and I like to paint. Some of the S4 on the pawl lever. That's it, paint it on. Now I can put it on the reduction wheel. And now the bridge. Now the reduction wheel holder. Not quite ready to start assembling the train. This jewel needs some S4 grease. I'll put it on as best as I can. Little bit of HP 500 on the center wheel here. This is a jeweled bearing. Now it can go in its place. Bit of HP 500 here before I put the bridge on. Now the bridge. And it can be secured with its screw. Test it. And tighten the screw. Final test. Bit of D5 on the barrel arbor here. I didn't have much oil on it and this is high friction area, so let me put a little bit more there. 90-10 just here on the 4th wheel. Now the barrel can go in its place. Little test. Now the escape wheel. Followed by the 3rd wheel. And finally the 4th wheel. Now the click. Little bit of D5 on the barrel arbor here. Some 90-10 on the 4th wheel here. And finally the bridge can go in its place. Move the click from under the bridge. It's just the escape wheel that needs some help to go in the jewel. That's it, we're in business. Let me put the screws in. I spotted something there. Little test. Now let's tighten the screws. Final test. And we're looking good. Now the ratchet wheel. Secure it with its screw. I'll jam it with pegwood so I can tighten it properly. Tidy up after the pegwood. Let's test it. And let's test the train. Looks good to me. Back on the motion side, I'll put some 9501 on the center wheel for the cannon pinion. There is some pressure on the train when you fit in the cannon pinion, so I like to have it on before I start on the escapement. Let me turn it over so you can see it, and I'll put a touch more on the other side. Now I can fit the cannon pinion. That's it. Little bit of 941 on the exit pallet stone. Now let me put the pallet fork in. Now the pallet bridge. Let me move it just there. There we go. Let's put the screws in. A little test. Now the other screw. Test. Tighten the screws. And final test. Leo's happy. Now let's put a little bit of power in the mainspring. And now I can fit the balance. Let's help it there a little bit. There we go. Secure it with its screw. I'm going to let the power down. I prefer the balance stationary when I clean and oil the jewels. Let's remove the spring. I'm not going to show the cleaning, you've seen it when I was doing the Diashocks on the bridge. It's the same procedure, Renata or Horosolve, scrub the end stone with pegwood and rinse it all in IPA. 9010. Can you see the oil? Little tidy up. Now the shutdown in the main plate. There we go. Now let's give it a full wind and we'll put it on the Timegrapher. It's always a nerve-wracking moment. All looks good, you've done the best you can, you put it on the Timegrapher, and sometimes the Timegrapher bursts into laughter and you feel like a child that just failed an exam. That's been running for 30 minutes, so let's have a look. I'll speed it up so we're not here forever. Dial down, let's see. Amplitude is good, reaching 275 degrees, losing a couple of seconds. Dial up. Amplitude is close to dial down amplitude, losing a few seconds but not bad. Crown right. It's going fast. Amplitude has dropped as you'd expect. It's leveling now, plus 11 seconds. Crown left. Not too bad. Crown up, it's looking good. Amplitude not bad, gaining just a few seconds. Crown down, not looking bad. It would be better if one could get hold of the original Seiko mainsprings, but I'm happy. Now I'll move on to the automatic work. If you look at the post for the second reduction wheel, you'll see that there is a groove in the post. I'm not quite sure why it is there. They must have had a good reason to add cost to the manufacturing, but why they did it, I don't know. Perhaps like an oil sink, to have more lubricant there, for grease? I'm not sure that would work. If you know why it is there, let me know down below in the comments. Let's have a look at it from a different angle. You can see the old S4 grease here. It's been in the ultrasonic several times and it's not shifting. If I use pegwood, I'll take the plating off. This is pretty much baked into the plating. It's as clean as it can be. It's not going to cause any issues, it just doesn't look very nice and it's going to be hidden under the second reduction wheel. We also have somewhere here. That's from the reduction wheel. Let's change the angle and we'll have a look at it. I put the reduction wheel there just to see what's going on. When I push the reduction wheel, you can see what's happening. The wheel wobbles on the post. The wear is inevitable. I put it down to the design. It's not disastrous. I think it will be fine. Let me get the pole lever ready. If you look here, it needs some grease there, but the pole lever doesn't touch the post. It stays around here, so put the grease in place accordingly. I'll put a little bit of 9501 there. I'll put some 9501 on the post for the second reduction wheel. And a little bit from your side so you can see it. This is the underside and this section is where the friction happens. I'll put some 9501 there. Now let me put the wheel in place. Secure it with the reverse threaded screw. Let me test it. Works just fine, both directions. The reduction wheel needs some grease here. It's out of focus. I focused on the pawl lever at the bottom of the screen. It won't take long and you'll soon see it. Bit by bit, I put some grease on, move it, put more grease on. I'll go around the wheel and put the grease in several places. I'm making a mess of the ratchet wheel. I'll tidy it up when I'm finished with this. That's done. I'll give it a few turns to spread the grease. Now I'll tidy up after myself. Let's have a look at it. And let's have a look how it runs. If you're enjoying it, give it thumbs up, and if you're feeling adventurous, you can treat me to a digital coffee. The link is down below in the description. Let's put the rotor in to finish off this side. This time I'm using Moebius 1920, making a mess, but I'll tidy it up after. Quick tidy up. Dabbing is better than wiping. Let's put it in its place. Note I already have the first reduction wheel in its correct position. I'll explain shortly. That's it. You need to have this hole in line with the center and this post, while the middle of the rotor is in line with the stem. Let's test it. Looks good there. Now the opposite direction. Looks good. Now we're going to be concentrating on this area. D5 on the minute wheel post. I've put a direct link in the description to the PDF on Moebius website where they tell you to use D5, not HP. That's the post for the intermediate date wheel. D5 on the post for the date finger, day finger and the date driving wheel, 3 in 1. Actually, I'm going to put some D5 on the rail here. It's not in the service sheet, but it makes sense, right? There is friction going on, so why not a touch of oil? And same here for the date driving wheel. That's the date driving wheel. And that's the date finger. The intermediate wheel. The minute wheel. And the hour wheel. Let me test it. It's doing what it should do. Bit of 9501 here for the date jumper. Not enough, a little bit more. Some D5 on the post. And the date jumper can go in its place. Tuck it in. Very small amount of 9010 here. Leo, you made a mess of it. Yes, I can see that. I'll clean it up after myself, alright? Clean it up. That's better. Let's tidy up the disc. And the date dial. Leo is fast, very fast. Let's put the date dial where it belongs. Put the date jumper there. And the date dial guard can go in now. That's secured with 2 screws just here. That's the day jumper. That's the day finger. And we can put the day disc on. Note I aligned the big hole with the day jumper so I can have easy access to it. Now the snap. Snap. Let's test it. Date is fine and the day is fine as well. Let me advance it a little. And let's test the quick set date. And it's working as it should do. Let's clean up the dial. You have to keep an eye on what you're cleaning. I have some lume dots on the dial. It wouldn't be a good idea to go over them with Rodico. There is a spacer ring between the dial and the main plate. It would be quite difficult to do it on the camera. It's easy enough, so I'll take you to the next step. Secure the dial with these two screws. Now let's have a look at the seconds hand. You can clearly see how bent it is. It's not looking great. It's also bent to one side. You should be able to see it. Can you see it? I'll start with pegwood. This is not going to do that much to it, but let's do it step by step. It's a little bit better. Now on a staking block, as if you wanted to iron it. It's not looking as drastic as it did before. That's a bit better. Next step, this is PU leather. It's quite soft, softer than your bench mat. I made a small hole in it for the hand. Now I can place the hand in. Hold it in place with the end of my tweezers. And I can gently go over the bend. Keep checking all the time, you don't want to overdo it. Okay, that's straight. Now the bend to the side, you can see it here, it needs to go this way. Same mat, but this time the hand is on its side. Instead of tweezers, I'm using Rodico. Gently, very gently. It's looking a little bit better, but it needs more. I couldn't see much before, so I picked up a pointy pegwood instead. It's getting there, but it needs a little bit more. You've got to be gentle, the hands are delicate. That's looking better. It's not absolutely straight. I could carry on, but when you look at it with your own eyes instead of a macro lens, you can't see it. The macro lens makes you look a fool no matter what you do. If you compare it to how it was before, it's much better now. Let's have a look what the staking block says. It's not looking too bad, but the end is lifted. This time on the bench mat, upside down and gentle push here. Staking block test. And we're good. Now the hour and minute hand. The lume is not looking great. The minute hand is not perfect, but again, it's under macro lens. I think new lume will make it look much better. I stripped the lume and I put new lume there from the underside. Looks much better, doesn't it? It doesn't look it, but this is the light green, it's not white. If you want to measure the diameter of the holes, this is the tool you need. Now let me set it to midnight. There we go. Let me put the hour hand on. This is awkward. Working for the camera can be hard at times. I think I'll do this hand and the others off the camera. I want to have them spot on. Okay, Leo is reasonably happy. Let's push it in place. That's it. Very playful with light. What do you think, guys? The second hand straight enough? Let's have a look at the case. Scratches. Dings. Nothing too deep though. It doesn't look very presentable. Absolutely filthy from the underside. The bezel doesn't look great either, does it? And the crystal is a mess. Okay, let's get rid of the dirt. Make sure you use your partner's toothbrush. I'm not sure why, but it does a much better job. I keep telling you, this is how I work. Life's too short. That's it, job done. What you're about to witness right now is my first ever go at polishing. I don't know how this is going to work out. My first time and on the camera as well. I'm nervous. Okay, let's do it. It's alright actually. I'll keep going. Let's have a look at it. It's starting to look shiny. It does need a little bit more though. I don't want to overdo it. I'll keep checking. It's looking better. That's a felt wheel and I'm using grey Diashocks. Let's have a close look. It's looking good. I'm looking at it with my loupe from just here, the very one you've seen in my logo, and I can see the angles perfectly. I think this should keep reasonably sharp edges. Okay, it's not perfect, but I don't want it perfect. I could carry on, but I'd actually like some imperfections. It's a 50+ years old watch. It does look much better now. Let me show you the setup. This is the Fordham flex shaft and the handpiece is the number 30. That's number 20 in the background. It's a lot smaller than what you normally see what guys used to polish cases with. But it's not about the size, it's about what you do with it. Or is that what men with small tools say? I don't know, you tell me. That's the third handpiece holder. That's really handy. It's not only the height you can adjust, you can also turn it 360 degrees. And that's Penny, the boss. She always wanted to be on YouTube, can you tell? Now back to polishing. I'm gonna go straight for the cotton wheel and the green Diashocks. We'll see what it's gonna look like. Bits of cotton flying everywhere. You can really follow the angles with the small wheels. I like it a lot. Yeah, I'm gonna have to clean the crown and stem and put grease on it again. What do you think? It's not looking bad, is it? The edges look good. I'm pretty happy with it. The bezel is looking good too. Shiny. But I'm not done. I taped the sides with Captain tape because I want to put brush finish on the top. That's a Scotch-Brite wheel, grit 800. I'm very careful, don't forget I've not done this before. It's not doing that much. Let me do the other side. I'm not sure I like it. Let's have a look at it. It's very fine. I'm not a fan. I'll tell you what I'll do. I have 400 grit as well. Let's give that a go. I think that's starting to look better. What do you reckon? I like it. I need to do the lugs as well. I cut a piece of paper to shape. You could buy dots, which I don't have, and I wanted to move on, so I have to improvise. You need 2 of these, one for these 2 and the other for these 2. 1 piece stuck to the paper and 2 pieces tape on tape. Cut to shape, same for the other piece of paper. I put it on and it looks something like this now. I put more tape on to protect the corners. And this is now ready for the Scotch-Brite. I didn't record the brushing, it only took a few seconds. Let's have a look at it. It's looking good to me. Now the crystal. I'm using a piece of micro finishing film. It's whatever I had handy, just to get rid of the deep scratches. Back to the flex shaft. For plastic, yellow Diashocks and a felt wheel. I had a go at it before, but it needed sanding, so let's see what it can do now. Back and forth, not to take off too much in one place. This is already looking better. Now the white Diashocks, still a felt wheel. This compound is very dry. For the final finish, white Diashocks on a cotton wheel. Let's have a look at it. crystal clear. Let's drive the crystal into the case. Cover it with some plastic. There we go. The bezel is in place. Cover it with plastic again. And there we go. So let's have a look at it. I'm pleased with the edges. It's probably due to the light reflections, but they look sharper than what they did before. I think the small wheels have their advantages. Let's put it in the case. Stem lubricated for the second time. You might be able to see the S7 grease on the gasket. Maybe not if you're watching it on your mobile. There we go. Let's put the ring in. I'll put some S7 on the gasket. It's going everywhere, but not in the groove. We'll take care of it in a bit. Let's tuck it in. I'll put the S7 in a few places here. Case back. Let's give it a nice tight seal. I'm slackening off the retaining ring. The thread on the tool is much wider than the thread on case backs. If you don't, the two bits will dig into the case back. That's it. People say you don't want a watch that needs a 19mm strap, you don't get much choice. I've no idea what they are talking about. There were pages and pages of 19mm straps. I just checked the website, 379 results, starting at £10 all the way up to 300. I got mine from Bodge Obsession. I'm not associated with them, they don't even know about me or this video. I'm just a client number to them, but I can assure you there are lots of 19mm straps. So there we have it, it's finally finished. I've worn it for a couple of weeks, it was gaining about 6 seconds a day on the wrist. So I regulated it and now it's gaining 1 second a day. Of course if you put it down for a long period it will drift a little, but like any other watch you'll find a couple of positions to leave it overnight, one to gain, the other to lose time, so you don't actually ever have to correct it. Guys, I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, give it thumbs up. If you want to support the channel, you can buy me a digital coffee, the link is in the description. If you want to know what gear I use to create these videos, what my favorite horology books are, etc., the links are in the description. Bye for now!